And now, stand-up community subscribers and listeners from around the globe, it's time to Stand Up with Pete Dominic, where we ask the important questions that impact you, your family, and your community. Such as, will local election officials accept my voter ballot if I sign it in my own blood? And will my aging mother-in-law maintain her independent living skills as long as she keeps up her exercise routine and also her consistent martini drinking? And now, the podcast host who revs up his Chevy Volt while he's waiting in line at the car wash, Pete Dominic.
You have nailed me again, sir. Got me red-handed. Constantly taking the Volt to the car wash and revving that motor. And we are off. Thank you very much for pressing play on today's podcast. I've got, you chose a good one. You chose a good episode to listen to today. Dr. Arthur Caplan and Wajahat Ali both joining me. Excellent conversations with both of them. You're going to want to hear them. Very excited to share those talks with you today. But before that, I've got plenty of news to get to. I guess I'm not going to have much updates on the election outcome yesterday. Yesterday, of course, was election day in towns, states, precincts all over the country. Big elections in cities like Buffalo and Boston and states like New Jersey and Virginia. But I don't have the information because I'm doing the show a little early. I pull back the curtain for you. I'm getting the show done by midnight as opposed to 2 a.m. because I'm getting up early to go for a little hike with my friend Ken Zatz, who is my daughter's pediatrician and one of my favorite all-time human beings. So I got to get up early, so I got to get the show done so I don't have the election outcomes for you. But I do have a bunch of other news and audio to play for you, as there always is. So shall we get to that right now, shall we? Without further ado, it's a terrible sentence. My daughter was playing Christmas carols today. How do you feel about that? That seems a little early, right? It's too early, right? All right, let's get to the last 24. All right, I want to start again with what is happening over in Glasgow, Scotland. I said England yesterday on the show, and several of you were outraged, and rightfully so. Absolutely right. I am so sorry to the Scottish. Apologize specifically to my good friend Dan McDonald. He was particularly offended that I put Glasgow in England. So my bad. But here we go to COP26. And I like this 90-second recap from The Recount at The Recount on Twitter. Reporter Kimberly Gavant talking about what was announced by President Biden and America's commitment.
Big news out of Glasgow. At the COP26 Climate Summit in Scotland, President Biden introducing some of the U.S.'s strongest regulations against methane emissions from oil and gas drilling.
We're proposing two new rules. One through our Environmental Protection Agency that's going to reduce methane losses from new and existing oil and gas pipelines. And one through the Department of Transportation to reduce wasteful and potential dangerous leaks from natural gas pipelines. They have authority over that area. We're also launching a new initiative to work with our farmers and our ranchers to introduce climate-smart agricultural practices and reduce methane on farms, which is a significant source as well.
Methane is the main greenhouse gas after carbon dioxide. It has a higher heat-trapping potential than CO2, but breaks down in the atmosphere faster, meaning that cutting methane emissions can have a rapid impact on reining in global warming. The announcement kicking off a reignited global methane pledge. Nearly 90 countries joining a U.S. and EU-led effort to collectively slash emissions of the potent greenhouse gas by 30% by the end of the decade.
That's nearly half the global methane emissions, or 70% of the global GDP.
Among the new signatories is Brazil, one of the world's 5 biggest emitters of methane. China, Russia, and India, also top 5 methane emitters, have not signed on to the pledge.
There you go. Great update from The Recount, recapping what is going on yesterday. Just one part of it at COP26. But then there's this back here in the United States of America, the good old GOP, the grand old party, the Republican Party, the only political party in the world, as far as I can tell, who is anti-science when it comes to pretty much, well, a lot of crucial things like COVID, but especially climate change. Here is the second most powerful Republican in the House, Steve Scalise of Louisiana, confirming what I've just told you. And it's trigger alert. It's really outrageous. I tweeted to my friend, Dr. Michael Mann, climatologist. I said, you could hear Michael Mann's head explode during this Steve Scalise soundbite.
What is the Republican plan for addressing climate change as you criticize President Biden for going overseas to this global climate summit?
Yeah, well, first of all, we had hurricanes a lot longer than we've had changes in carbon emissions. Carbon emissions have been around since before man walked the earth. I mean, you've seen 10,000 years ago, you can look at the record, and we had warmer temperatures on the earth than we do today because it goes up and down. We've had freezing periods in the 1970s. They said it was going to be a new cooling period, and now it gets warmer, it gets colder. That's called Mother Nature. But the idea that hurricanes or wildfires were caused just in the last few years is just fallacy.
It's so audacious to just go unchecked. The entire scientific community, every single scientific organization not funded by fossil fuels, every single state, university, government, and around the world, every single college and university and government, I mean, around the world, they all agree. All the scientists agree. And by the way, you don't have to be a scientist to understand how simple the science is of greenhouse gases getting trapped in the Earth's atmosphere over a long period of time and throwing off the climate and temperatures on our planet. I mean, you don't have to be a genius. Even I can understand that. It's absolutely outrageous and audacious. And of course, completely maddening. And now let's go to a young activist, student, artist, innovator, environmentalist, according to her Twitter page. I'm going to try to get her name right. Venetia Umashankar spoke at yesterday's event, telling world leaders none of what we've discussed today seems practical to me. Well, I'll let her take it from there.
Me and my generation will live to see the consequences of our actions today. Yet none of what we discussed today seems practical to me. You are deciding whether or not we will have a chance to live in a habitable world. You are deciding whether or not we are worth fighting for, worth supporting, and worth caring. Many of my generation are angry and frustrated at leaders who have made empty promises and failed to deliver. And we have every reason to be angry.
All right, well, there's a lot more I want to play for you, but I'm going to move on. There's a lot to talk about with this. I don't have a good guest booked on climate or COP26 this week, but it does go on next week as well, and I am going to catch up and get some good folks on. Who do you want to talk to? Who should I talk to? Who do you like? The Brian Kahn and Earther, the Emily Atkin, Dr. Michael Mann, scientists, journalists. Who do you like? Entrepreneurs who are creating future renewable energy ideas. Who are your guys and gals that you'd like me to reach out to? All right, so moving on, I want to play for you the mayor of New York, and it looks like Eric Adams is going to be the new mayor, but here is the current mayor, Bill de Blasio, touting that mandates have worked in New York City despite all of the loud noise around them and threats from the police department, fire department, which is so bizarre because it's the leading cause of death for cops, really, COVID, and yet they're still not getting vaccinated. Anyway, here is Mayor Bill de Blasio.
92% of the city workforce is now vaccinated as a result of this mandate. The vast majority of our city employees and the vast majority of our firefighters are doing the right thing. But the ones who are playing a game, they're going to have to suffer some consequences because this is unacceptable.
And now let's head over to the U.S. Senate, where the Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, my senator here in New York, has some news on congressional negotiations. And guess what? It's good development.
I'm pleased to announce that an agreement has been reached to lower prescription drug prices for seniors and families in the Build Back Better legislation. Fixing prescription drug pricing has consistently been a top issue for Americans year after year, including the vast majority of both Democrats and Republicans.
But wait, call now and you'll get so much more.
By empowering Medicare to directly negotiate prices in Part B and Part D, this deal will directly reduce out-of-pocket drug spending for millions of patients every time they visit the pharmacy or doctor. It will cap out-of-pocket spending at $2,000 per year. ending the days where a life-changing diagnosis could mean thousands upon thousands of dollars in new expenses.
All right, some important announcements from Chuck Schumer. How about that? All right, well, there is a lot more news out there today, but I've got to get to bed early, so you're going to have to find it yourself. Sorry, this is as robust as it's getting. I've got some headlines. I've got a news dump for you, but in terms of sound, most of everything else had to do with the outcomes of the elections, which I am not up late enough to document. But I'm sure you are watching that, and you probably already know of it, so I'm probably just wasting your time. So some non-election related headlines in your news dump, and let's see what the great Pete Coe has cooked up for us today.
Quaint Indian village has its residents in a huff. One too many tiger killings for today's news dump.
Uh-oh. A quaint Indian village is upset about all the tiger killings. Thank you, Pete, as always. All right, let's see. What do we got for you? David Campbell in Australia told me about this news because he was covering it for Channel 9, where he is the host of the Today Show, co-host. And this is a big story. A missing 4-year-old was found alive after 18 days in Australia. I mean, this is crazy. She vanished from a campsite in a remote part of Western Australia, and they said they found her in a locked house in the town of Carnarvon early Wednesday. And it's crazy. Absolutely insane story out of Australia. Girl's gone, 4-year-old girl gone 18 days, and they found her. How about that? The nuclear sub that had an accident, the U.S. submarine in the South China Sea, apparently it's been solved. The USS Connecticut smashed into an underwater mountain. Apparently was not on the charts. 11 sailors were injured in a collision last month. The sub had to sail to Guam on the surface for repairs. Had to sail to Guam. Sorry, I just love the word Guam. The Dow closed at over 36,000 for the first time. Stocks closed higher on Wall Street Tuesday, pushing the Dow Jones Industrial Average to hit first close ever above 36,000. So, yeah, again, with the socialism and the Marxism and the Joe Bidenism, and yet Wall Street seems to be on fire. The folks in Maine apparently decided yesterday to this is a referendum thing I did see, to pass the nation's first right to food constitutional amendment. A statewide referendum asked voters if they favor an amendment to the Maine Constitution to declare that all individuals have a natural, inherent, and unalienable right to grow, raise, harvest, produce, and consume food of their own, choosing for their own nourishment, sustenance, bodily health, and well-being. It's an experiment not tried before by any state. What are the preppers? The lobby for this one? I don't know. Is this a good one or not? Where are the intentions here? I mean, I agree with it, but it seems too obvious. Facebook, which wants to be now called something else, but I won't call them the something else. They announced yesterday that they were shutting down their use of facial recognition system on their social media platform. The announcement came after mounting pressure from advocacy groups concerned about privacy issues, allegations of racial bias in algorithms, and additional concerns related to how artificial intelligence technology identifies people's faces in pictures. So I think that's probably good news, right? Where were you on the Facebook facial recognition technology? The Biden administration yesterday rolled out a new initiative aimed at reducing suicide by gun and combating the significant increases in suicides by members of the military and veterans. White House announced the new plan Tuesday. Officials say it's unprecedented focus by the federal government on reducing the risk of suicide through awareness and training campaigns and new regulations to increase the availability of gun storage products. So a lot more to read there about that one at ABC News. Missouri Senator and insurrectionist Josh Hawley, speaking at the National Conservatism Conference Sunday, apparently said that liberal attacks on masculinity have created idle men who watch pornography and play video games. I mean, I don't even understand how that's a thing. What is happening? Can we talk about that, please? Forever? Because that's the craziest shit I've ever heard. Oh my God, that guy's such an asshole. All right, like I said, I don't have the outcomes on the election. I think I've said that now 3 times, so I think I'll wrap it there for a briefer news segment than normal. But we get right to the conversations where we learn a lot from both Wajahat Ali coming up, and Dr. Arthur Caplan right now. He is the most respected, how does one decide such things? And according to me, the most respected bioethicist in the country is at NYU Langone. He's published and edited like 30 books. He's also on Twitter at Arthur Caplan, and he is a regular commentator for journalists that reach out to him all the time, and he always loves joining me for some reason, and I certainly do love when he does. We had a great conversation starting. It picks up here where he's talking about how he's going away on vacation with his family after it's been postponed twice, finally going to Hawaii, and you catch him in the middle of talking about the regulations, and I left it in because I thought it was interesting, and here it is right now at Arthur Caplan. Let's do it.
For people who don't like vaccine passports, you got to show vaccine proof, or you have to quarantine. The house we rented, Verbo or Beer, they want vaccine certification. The airline wants vaccine certification. It's like a whole song and dance. Plus, Hawaii makes you register on some app, which supposedly tells you if you've been in contact with somebody who's turned up positive. I mean, it's a whole show. I've never seen anything like it.
When your whole industry, when your whole state's industry is based on people coming there and feeling and having fun and feeling safe, and you're an island, it would,
you can do it.
Yeah. Or if you're China, you paying attention with what they're doing right now?
Yeah, it's just everybody in lockdown. See you later.
Did you hear about Shanghai Disneyland?
Yeah, everybody tests for the one case. Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, all right, let's go.
There's some days you got to like China.
I mean, listen, authoritarianism has its appeal for sure.
What was it? The old thing was to get the trains to run on time.
Oh, God, you can't make that joke, sir. Are you ready to rock?
I am.
All right, well, okay, so just before we get into the issues, someone emailed us from your appearance last time. We want to have a little fun here. Do you know what a voice twin is? Have you ever heard that?
No.
It's very much, most people, I didn't know what it was, so I was like in radio for a while. Like a caller calls in and they say, or you say to them, hey, you sound like somebody. You sound like a certain celebrity. But this guy got very specific with your last appearance on episode 448 of Stand Up. Mike Larson in Wisconsin emailed me and he said, Dr. Arthur Caplan had a vocal moment that reminded me of someone very specific. Please compare Dr. Arthur Caplan's voice to the character Frank Pentangeli from Godfather Part 2, played by Michael Gazzo. And then he sent me the exact time code, and so I grabbed them knowing I was talking to you.
Very good.
And I would like to play them for you. So here is this is just like 5 seconds of you and then 5 seconds of that short scene in the courtroom in The Godfather 2. Here's and then you decide if you think it's an accurate or fair comparison. Here we go.
So, yeah, why wouldn't we again say no vax, no flight?
You heard that, right?
Got it.
All right, here now is Frank Pentangeli in The Godfather.
Everything. And I kept saying, Michael Corleone did this.
Yes.
And Michael Corleone did that.
You hear it.
I do.
You think it's a fair
I do.
comparison. And how does it feel to have your voice, at least in that moment, compared to Frank Pentangeli in The Godfather 2?
It feels good. I feel like we have about the same expertise, background. By the way, I got to tell you another story.
Go.
The world's coming to an end. COVID is killing everybody. We're all dying. But here's as long as we're doing twins. When I was younger, long time ago, remember Joey Buttafuoco?
Sure.
Long Island, murdered, his girlfriend murdered his wife, or shot her. It didn't murder her, I guess shot her.
Yeah.
Going through Newark Airport. You can look at me right now, get me back about 25 years or whatever it is. I am the twin of Joey Buttafuoco. I walk through the airport. People are coming up to me, Joey. The security guards are saying Joey. So I'm like, yeah, okay, Joey, whatever. The next week, a couple of newspapers around the country printed my picture and his picture next to one another. Look-alike found.
Well, that, you hope if you look like somebody that A, they're considered generally handsome, and B, they aren't famous for being a degenerate. But I can't even remember what he looks like. But you, sir, are, you have model good looks, but I've always thought that. Yeah.
So, I mean, but now at least I got two connections to criminals or deviants or whatever the hell it is.
Do you have that picture anywhere? Maybe I can find it, but either way, I'll
look. It's
I'll
probably
mock
still
up.
rattling around.
I can mock it up if I can find a 25-year-old photo of you and him. I'll try to put it together and put it in today's show notes. Okay, well, now that we got
great to talk to you. See you later.
Yeah, see you later. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye. All right. First of all, I want you to help me understand how someone who earns their MD, but then runs all kinds of scams, purposely mistreats people with, therapeutics or drugs that they found in their sock drawer, and does all kinds of other bad things. How they continued to get to be a doctor. What do we need to know about the boards? I guess the state boards that license doctors, and what do you have to do to lose your license in America?
So this is some time ago, but I was on the New York State Medical Licensing Board, must have been 90s. And I'll give you a case. We had a guy who molested his own kid, pediatrician, and he came to our attention, and we sent him a letter to warn him that he should stop doing that and make sure that someone was in the room with him when he practiced medicine. I think the correct response would have been, we're taking your license, we're chopping off your arms, and you will be sent to the island of nowhere, and you're never going to practice again. These boards, they're understaffed. They act like little prosecutors, but they don't really have the resources. And then they tend to say, poor Pete, he may be a deviant, maybe an idiot, maybe practicing outside the standard of care, but you know what? It took him a long time to get that medical license. We're going to respect that. We'll send out letters and put it in his permanent record. It'll be like, he was bad. I mean, they're too weak. They're too slow. It's absurd that we have people killing people by giving them bad drugs or bad advice. I know it's free speech in part, but you got to stay in a pandemic within the bounds of, what accepted authorities believe to be true. So this drives me nuts. I cannot believe that the boards aren't more aggressive.
Can I just ask you a general question on your view of chiropractics and chiropractors? Because anecdotally, I have heard of many of them being in the world of anti-vax. Yeah. There's a certain, there's a conversation about the science and effectiveness of chiropractics. I guess it's somewhat confusing or controversial in the world of experts. But I've also, everybody knows somebody or goes themselves and they love it. But what about chiropractors and anti-vax? You got anything on that? Am I putting you on the spot? Do you know anything?
No. By the way, not all chiropractors are anti-vax, but some are. They kind of lean into if it's manipulation and we can block kind of Chinese-style medicine, energy flows around the body in certain directions, we can fix things. I am not anti-chiropractor for muscle, back, those kind of problems. I think they manipulate people. That's good. I've seen chiropractors try chiropractic on babies. I think they ought to arrest them. It's ridiculous. They're risking damage to the kid by doing manipulations on a baby. I mean, forget it. Do I want to take my advice on viruses and what kills them from a chiropractor? No. So I don't care if a chiropractor writes a medical excuse to get out of vaccination. I would throw that in the trash.
Who is writing? Are there other physicians?
Yeah, there are some other naturopaths, believe it or not, licensed in some states. I'm not even sure what they believe. I know what chiropractic is about. And as I said, you got a sore back, you have a bum shoulder. I think there's some sense in what they're trying to do in terms of, manipulate bones and muscles. But viruses don't care about that. There are plenty of people dead who had all kinds of visits to chiropractors, and they're just dead. So no, that's going outside your expertise. And stop manipulating the babies. God help us. There's no baby who needs chiropractic.
I just thought of I just pictured a baby as a 65-year-old man with his hand on his lower back. I'm a baby. My back is killing me. If only I could.
Exactly. Hey, I haven't been able to sit in this chair for weeks. Come on, help me out.
Yeah, I know I just know too many chiropractors who are really way, way out there. And I don't know how one would know what percentage of them believe this stuff, but it's too many as far as, just anecdotally from what I've heard. So let me ask you about your piece that you co-wrote with Dorit. Am I saying it? Dorit Rice, yep. Professor Rice, who's a legal professor. The University of California, Hastings College of Law. You and is it a female? She wrote this at Barron's. This is titled "Kid Vaccines Are Coming Soon. Why a Mandate Wouldn't Be Wise." And so I want to say there needs to be nuance in the conversation, all conversation, but especially about mandate. And it's not all mandates are created equal, sir. How am I doing?
I'm with you. Keep going.
All right. Well, we could talk about the mandates in New York City for city workers and how that's played out and what the percentages are at private companies and how that's played out, how the headlines are written. We've talked about that before, but let's do kids right now. What with the new vaccines available for ages 5 to 11.
So for those listeners who've been in a coma the past year and haven't heard me say that, I am Mr. Mandate.
Yes.
Mandate everybody, mandate up and down.
He now gets recognized.
Cops.
No longer does he get recognized as Joey Buttafuoco. Now he's going to the airport to go to Hawaii. They're like, is that Dr. Mandate over there?
Exactly. So I pushed through a flu shot mandate for healthcare workers pre-COVID. Want to see every healthcare worker vaccinated. Pete was doing a great job laying out different kinds of workers, different situations where you might mandate. But kids, the goal is to get them vaccinated and not set off a legal war over whether, let's call it emergency use authorized kid vaccines, which is what we got, are adequate to mandate. I don't want that fight. I just want parents to go get their kids vaccinated. I'm not anti-vaccines for kids, but I think what's going to happen is if you say it's a mandate on kids, a lot of parents are going to say, I'm freaking out. I may have even been vaccinated myself. I don't know what's going to happen with my kid, and I'm going to join the lawsuit that says you can't mandate. So my game is practical. Get vaccinated, but the route for kids I don't think is mandates. Not right now. Maybe 2 years from now when we get a licensed vaccine. Okay. When a lot of kids have been vaccinated and they're still walking around and everybody's happy. Okay. Pete, one way to force vaccination on kids, not lollipops or candy. If I say, my kid's coming over to play with your kid, and Pete says, oh, yeah, are they vaccinated? That's going to encourage a whole lot of vaccination. If I say, I'm flying to Hawaii on my twice-delayed trip, and Hawaii says, kids vaccinated, can't come, that's going to move a lot of folks. I may not even need the mandate.
A friend of mine, wink, wink, has a daughter, wink, wink, whose friend... they missed her bar mitzvah because they couldn't do the bar mitzvah because of the pandemic. So she's adapting, and now she's this person is taking her kids who are, I don't want to give anything away because I don't want to give the surprise away. That's all. Taking her kid to Florida next week, and her kid can invite 5 friends, but only 3 of her 5 friends are vaccinated and 2 of them can't. You can't go, according to the mom, if you're not vaccinated. It's just a fascinating thing that my wink, wink friend's kid is experiencing because the mom is paying for everything, Art. Hotel on the pool. These are 13 and 14-year-old kids going with their friends. Hotel on the beach, not hotel, condo, house. Amazing. They can't go because they're not vaccinated.
That's the kind of pressure that I think you're going to see in a lot of families, in a lot of situations. And again, you don't need a mandate. You just have to say, hey, I got Nick tickets. Well, whatever, tickets to something. And you want to go? But they say you can't go in unless you're vaccinated. So I'd love to bring you. How are you doing there?
You and Professor Rice write a great nuanced piece. You lay out the arguments and statistics about kids and why they should be vaccinated, even though it hasn't been, they haven't died. By the way, we got to stop. What is it in your business where we got to stop talking about deaths? Like my wife came on and publicly talked about her experience with COVID. Art, she had COVID a few weeks ago. She lost her sense of smell and taste and wanted to die. All the other effects that we don't talk about, but We mandate vaccines for 12 other things. Why shouldn't we mandate vaccines for kids' school? Why shouldn't this one be one?
Yeah. So look, you're right. COVID hasn't killed that many kids, maybe 200, I think, in the past year. But they get long haul COVID. They get the symptoms and problems. There's at least, as I remember this number, about 2,000 that wind up in the ICU. That's not a good thing. We saved them, and then there, many will have problems throughout their lives: fatigue, loss of smell and taste, and all the rest of it. So we don't want that. Of course, we should vaccinate them. But in our current climate, it means going to war in court because you have, again, this sort of emergency use authorization. And as we know, a lot of businesses, even with adults, were reluctant to vaccinate under the emergency use thing. Now that we got them licensed, people are like, okay. And I would say, you go to school, what do you got to get? Meningitis, measles, mumps, rubella, Hib, this bacterial thing. There must be 10 vaccines you have to take to go to school. No reason you shouldn't take this one, but we're going to have that fight next year's interview. Year from now, mandate them.
All right. So gain of function is a phrase nobody knew till last year. Now everybody is an expert on gain of function. There's some new data out. There's new develops, new research. What do you want to tell us? What do people? I don't want to learn all about this. I've had to. I'm trying to. Talking to some epidemiologists, talking to scientists, friends, research friends. You're the bioethicist, so I would just rather ask you.
All right. So gain of function just means you take a virus or a bacteria and you try to add to its capability either to infect either animals or people, or be more lethal. Why would you do that? Because when you figure out what genes that you change cause those things to happen, then maybe you can figure out a way to shut them off. Or if you're in a mean-spirited mood, you can make a weapon. I mean, that's the other use. You say, okay, it's not a great weapon since it's likely to kill your guys as well as their guys, but okay, nonetheless, you could make a weapon. Gain of function research has been going on for decades. It's not new. It was done with flu. People were going crazy then. It was just an in-house debate about it, whether in order to understand how to stop the flu, you should do gain of function studies to see what changes would make the flu nastier. Oh, and I forgot, if you do figure out what genes make things, say, easier to catch, then you're monitoring the world and you can say, this new strain has appeared, get in there and vaccinate.
Right.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
Excuse me. Let me get a shot of water here before I have gain of function.
Now I'm going to leave that in.
It's funny, before we came on, I ate something very dangerous.
What
poppy
was it?
seed bagel. The poppy seed is stuck in my throat. It's like, oh, this is terrible. Don't eat that before you go on the radio. All right. Anyway, the other issue is, can we blame China for killing us all? That's what gain of function research is all about. It's pointing the finger of blame. I think we're not going to get the answer to that because China's not inclined to cooperate with us. Maybe that makes you suspicious, but unless we can go in there, study their labs, really figure out what the hell was going on, just finding out that Anthony Fauci in 2019 funded a study to do gain of function research, it doesn't really prove much about anything. So I explained to you what the studies are. We could argue about whether anybody should ever be allowed to do them on any virus because they're pretty dangerous. When I was looking at this with the flu, I asked the guy at the University of Wisconsin who was doing gain of function studies on flu virus, and I said, what's the security there? And he said, we're good. We got a guard, and we're in a lab on the edge of campus. And I said, you got a guard in the edge of the campus? That's it? That's your, it's like, it's like saying, yeah, we have a nuclear bomb manufacturing site, but we got a guard, and it's good. He's pretty alert, sleeps a little.
He's alert.
So it's like, anyway, I probably wouldn't do this research except in certified labs where we really know what the heck is going on. But this whole thing about, did China kill us? Is it China's fault? Did they hide stuff? Yeah, they did hide stuff, and they weren't transparent in the way that I would wish. Am I shocked that this giant totalitarian regime is behaving this way? Not really. And I don't think we're going to get the answer. So my attitude is move along.
Well, what about the concerns over NIH, Dr. Fauci, people or organizations being blamed in terms of all the way that things are funded? They said they weren't funding gain of function. They were funding gain of function, but it wasn't for the, like, is there anything there to be concerned about? Are you concerned about any of how that funding went or how it's been reported?
No, and I'll tell you why. I don't believe that gain of function research would be done. It would have to get approved way over Fauci's head. I think people are covering up. It's the kind of thing that you have in a presidential briefing, that we're going to fund gain of function research in a lab in China. I don't buy this idea that Fauci sits around and makes funding decisions on that kind of stuff by himself. It's national security stuff. There is no way others didn't know. No way.
All right. So finally, I want to just ask you about this, the argument over natural immunity. I guess this is a research question, but when I see you tweet gold standard argument over next topic, that puts me at ease. Like, I mean, I put a lot of trust into Art Caplan. Maybe he's screwing us all. I don't know. Yeah. But so far,
his voice is suspect, and he hangs around with mobsters, but okay, whatever.
He does sound like Frank Pantangeli. Here it is. The Infectious Disease Society of America. I guess they're good. Strongly support.
Really good. The strongest you could get.
Strongly supports the CDC's recommendation that unvaccinated people previously infected with a virus that causes COVID-19 get vaccinated as soon as possible after they have fully recovered. It's a natural immunity question. This is being debated amongst, from Joe Rogan to your favorite crunchy natural living person.
Right. So everybody says natural infection. First of all, that must be better. Let me remind you, natural infection kills you. This is not better. It's not nice. It's bad. Second of all, not all natural infection is equal. That's what these infectious disease guys came out and said. Look, if you walk by somebody and you get a little virus picked up, breathing it in, you build a little immunity. You sit in the same room with that person every day at work for a month, you build a lot of immunity if you're lucky and you don't get sick. We can't tell whether you got a little or a lot, and it would take forever to test us all to figure out what we got. Vaccine's safe, vaccine's effective. It'll give even more immunity. So get the vaccine, they tell us, and I'm with them. It's like the downside is you get an even more big immune boost that might last longer than having caught it. So why wouldn't you do it?
I have a million more questions for you, but you have a million more people to talk to and things to do. Dr. Art Caplan, I so appreciate your time, and I know you're getting some time off, so I hope you enjoy yourselves.
Very good. Thank you. Aloha.
All right, there he goes. NYU's Art Caplan, at Arthur Caplan on Twitter, everybody. Such a great guest, and he just seems to get more and more fun. The more I talk to him, the more comfortable he is. So I think somebody suggested I just talk to him about everything but bioethics because he's so great to talk to. Always a pleasure. Always learn a lot. And that is the quality of guest, the most respected bioethicist in the country, answering tons of questions that I fired at him from the shed over StreamYard video link. So go thank him. Please thank him for joining me. He will see your tweets and appreciate it. But now it's time for the great Wajahat Ali, everybody. Waj, of course, has a new book that's coming out in January. It's so good. You got to pre-order it now. Go back to where you came from and other helpful recommendations on how to become American. So funny, so thoughtful, as he always is. He's on Twitter at Wajahat Ali, where it seems like every tweet goes viral. A regular contributor to the Daily Beast, CNN commentator, former New York Times op-ed contributor. Such a smart guy. So great here on the podcast, and always love talking to him. And listener Gareth Severus submitted yet another intro song for yet another fairly regular guest, Waj Wednesdays. Got to listen to the lyrics closely, but I played this for Waj. He loved it, but we start talking and then I played him the song. But thank you to Gareth at Gareth Tap on Twitter, Buckets and Boards. He's a comedy percussionist show. Great guy, subscriber and listener of the show, and love these that everybody's contributing. I love that so many listeners are contributing their talent to the show. Makes it fun, makes it better, makes it more interesting and entertaining as we take all of it in, all these important issues and conversations. All right, Wajahat Ali and me right now. There he is.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
How are you, fellow Scorpio?
How are you, fellow Scorpio?
I got the evil eye. I got some sty on my left eye for the first time. So I feel like I'm decomposing. I feel like I'm in a zombie movie. I've been afflicted with the plague.
I don't see it.
My eye's totally red. It's
a sty.
It's an evil eye. I literally got the evil eye, but it's okay. Someone saw my Lego and decided to send the evil eye to me.
Well, that's understandable. I saw that and did it, but I didn't think you got it. So before we say anything else, I'm going to play the introduction that a listener wrote for you. They wrote you a whole song.
Amazing.
This comes from a listener named Gareth Sever, who's a super talented musician. And he's the same guy who wrote the Ophira Eisenberg one, in case folks heard that. But here we go. This first time Waj is hearing this. Hear it, right?
Yeah.
He's Wajahat Ali. Got a book that comes out the 25th of January. Go back to where you came from. Do you mean where he got his name from? Lego abilities amaze until his wife stops his spending spree. He'll dismantle your political stance on a Zoom call in his jacket, shirt, and tie, and his underpants. His powers of thoughtful discussion bring nuanced perspective that can't help but draw us in. It's Wednesday. I'm the Wajahat Ali.
That's amazing.
He included so many details about your life, your wife, your Legos, your kids, the way that you are so thoughtful here. And here at Stand Up with Pete Dominic, we do know that there are other podcasts that you do, but we are trying to, recruit you in a way like schools recruit athletes to just put us, on a high priority list of podcasts that you join, because we at least, I don't know about these other shows that you do, but we have a song for you now.
I always say yes to Pete Dominic. I never say no. I only say no if I'm totally swamped with the kids. And the level of detail in that song was eerily frightening, at the same time awe-inspiring. That was amazing. That was like the best birthday gift ever. It was like actually very humbleable also. And the fact, it was like fact checked. It was on point. It was like a very nerdy musician who actually pulled that off. It was well done. My hat's off. Thank you.
So let's talk about, Gareth, great job. Let's talk about like birthdays for middle-aged men in the digital age. You and I both celebrated our birthdays, and we're very well-liked people. And so we were bombarded with commentary on several different platforms, and, traditional phone calls, texts, you name it. How did it feel to get so many kind wishes? And did anybody wish you terrible things?
So far, nothing terrible. I woke up because my baby daughter decided to give me an unopened can of yogurt. So I'm like, okay, I'll take that. I don't know what that means. She goes, happy birthday, Baba, yogurt. I'm like, okay. And then the other two babies jumped on me. So I'm like, it's already a win. And then we were at Ocean Beach, which is in Maryland, in an off season. So I said, hey, let's go eat something for my birthday. And my son's like, I want to eat Subway. I'm like, can we eat something other than Subway? He goes, I want Subway tuna sandwich. I'm like, it's not even tuna. He goes, I want Subway tuna. And then the other girl, the co-conspirator, says, I want Subway tuna too. So for my birthday, I had a veggie sandwich, which was awesome. That's what happens. And when you're our age, you go like, please hold the cheese and hold the oil, because you just delude yourself into thinking you're saving calories. I'm like, I'm like, put some guac in there. That's good protein. And my wife's like, sure. And then I also had a chocolate chip cookie because it was my birthday.
Do you have any traditions? Do you do anything on your birthday? I like.
No, man. At this age, I'm just, I say this with no seriousness. I think we've discussed this on your podcast before. I'm just like grateful I'm alive. I never thought I'd make it to 40. So I wake up, I'm like, I'm alive. This is amazing. I'm very happy. And then my wife, she's like, let's do something. What do you want to do? I'm like, nothing. It's okay. You don't have to. She thinks I'm being passive aggressive. I'm like, I'm being passive. You don't have to do anything for me. Just like get me a chai. Let me sleep. She goes, you already sleep. I'm like, let me sleep more. That's pretty much it. I got to spend time with my kids. My parents sent me money, which I asked them not to, and I bought a Lego set that me and my son wanted to buy, and it came like in a day. So I was like, all right, I got a chai, a veggie sandwich without cheese, which tasted like vegetables, and a Lego set. What more do I want? And I'm alive. And I got really nice comments from you and other people, and I posted this tweet, which just made me reflect. I turned 41, and every 10 years of my life, it's been cyclical. You read the book. Interesting things always happen every 10 years. So I thought about it. I'm like, wow, I'm alive. I didn't think I'd be alive 10 years ago. And every 10 years, something amazing happens. At 21, I became broke. My parents went to jail. At 31, I almost died, which forced me to reevaluate my life. I got married. I moved to Virginia. And at 41, I got these 3 babies. I'm still living. I still have hair on my head, which makes me a brown unicorn. Me, Kumail Nanjiani, and Hassan Manaja, 3 brown men in their 40s with hair. And I got the book coming out. So how can I complain? How about you?
What about it? I don't know. I've talked about it on the podcast, but my daughters wrote me letters, 14 and 16, and they basically said the things that you would want your 14 and 16-year-old kid to think about who you are to them. So if you could win an award for your career or recognition of maybe even like some great volunteer work you did throughout your career or something, there's nice things that are great for your ego. But years ago, I doubled down and dedicated myself to them and being the best dad I can be and being as close as I could be to them and a good role model. And so they both wrote me letters about who I was to them. It's exactly what I was kind of aiming for. So it's better than any other award or any other, distinguished recognition that you get, is that my daughters basically are like, thanks for doing what you've done, being who you are. And so I'm over the moon. That's it.
That's, you've actually won at life, because as dads, especially when we get like a post 40 and we have kids, we think about our mortality and life and legacy. And I think for most fathers, I could speak for myself and, what bouncing off what you said, it's like, I just want my kids to be good people. Like when it's all said and done, can my kid look back and say, Baba was a nice guy. He taught me well. He was a good dude. He loved me. And then you go, I've always wanted to hear that. Thank you. And then you just die. That's what most men, they just die right then. They're like, I love you.
Well, that's the truth. I mean, like, your kids are still young. And so when your kids are younger than, like, you really do, especially from someone who's had near-death experiences like you say, let me first live to get them far enough to have role modeled and taught them as much as I can. And like I feel that way. Like if I died tomorrow, they would be ready for life. Like their wings are fully formed with feathers. They're independent. And I did enough. I hope I don't. I hope I can, now. But the rest is almost like gravy at this point, because they're 14 and 16. And I got that recognition. I just feel done. Yeah. Good.
It's done. Yeah. Like everything else from now on is just a win. It's just gravy. It's frosting.
There's still time to screw them up. There's still time for me to do bad things.
But 14 and 16 are the ages where young teenage girls and like sons, they like traditionally hate their parents. They don't want to hang out with you. They don't value. They have a tough time saying, I love you. They're like masturbating in the room most of the time.
Yes.
Looking at porn and have horrible self-image. So like if you're children, especially in their teenage years, where their snark and hormones are able to articulate those emotions for you in a positive way, it's over, man. It's like you could just you're like Leonardo DiCaprio before he dies, king of the world on Titanic.
That's exactly the exact comparison I like to have drawn. Thank you.
But before death, because there was always space on that. I saw that movie again. I'm like, there was space. Kate Winslet.
The big debate. The actors are still being asked to think about it.
You know what? That's why I know, like, that they always look at that from the lens of a person of color, and I'm just like, it's a typical white girl move. Like, it's a Karen move, because a family, like an immigrant family of color, it would have fit like 17 people on that chest.
I know, it really was a very white thing to do, to hold onto that log, I think, alone.
Come on, Karen.
Let me ask you now. See, this will post after the outcome of the election, so it's kind of a waste of time to analyze what might happen. But
we could talk enough, though. We could talk about it.
Well, you're in Virginia, and you've been watching it closely, and I kind of do want to talk about it as it pertains to the final kind of weeks and the strategy that took hold and what was effective there, because it's representative and unfortunately a virus around the country. But this, I went to vote, because I'm a citizen, a responsible citizen. And as I'm walking out, I see this dad with his daughter. And it's always great when you take your kids to vote. It's a great thing to do. But the girl was like, 2. And I put the sticker on, and I just had a feeling he was one of us. So I said, he goes, someday you're going to vote too. And I said, I hope this isn't the last time we do get to vote. And he laughed, and he knew what I was referring to. But it does seem like we're here at the twilight of democracy for a lot of reasons. What are the big concerns here in Virginia and around the country for this election outcome?
So, you can't extrapolate everything from a governor's race in a purplish state. I think first and foremost, it's a good reminder that Virginia, even though it's been leaning blue, it hasn't completely gone blue. Secondly, it gives you a national strategy that no one listens to me. I'm a crazy person, but I tried to warn about it in the summer. I even wrote about it, how CRT is a manufactured threat by the GOP modeled after the anti-Sharia threat from the midterm 2010 elections. People didn't take it seriously. Dems laughed it off. They didn't have a counterpunch. And lo and behold, in 2010 and 2012, Republicans won elections on it. This is facially neutral, racist dog whistles of the Southern strategy coming back to play in Virginia with quote-unquote CRT. They don't know what CRT is, just like they don't know what Sharia is, but they know that it's going to take over and go after white people, and it's terrifying. And so what you've seen, like I've been saying, follow my tweets, I've been saying it for a couple of weeks, and Dems on Twitter got really upset at me. I said, this is going to be a much closer race than you guys think. They're like, oh, you doomsday scenario, McAuliffe is up 5. And it also showed the weakness, I have to say, originally of Terry McAuliffe, who thought he could waltz his way through a victory. You did not develop a counter strategy for CRT, which plays on not only racial panic, but also suburban parent panic. Specifically, the schools are making your kids gay. They're making your kids into transgender. Your son's going to wear a skirt. Your son's going to learn to hate white people. Your son's going to become a socialist. It's through CRT, CRT, CRT. And the guy, Christopher Rufo, who's a right-wing activist, literally admitted his plan. He says, I'm going to make CRT into a catch-all of whatever we want it to make it to, and we're going to mainstream it. It also shows the weaknesses of our mainstream media institutions, that they allow a manufactured lie from the right-wing ecosystem to seep through and penetrate the mainstream and affect just enough of the independents that it sways it. So now what we have, as of this recording, is a razor-thin, tight toss-up where there is so much enthusiasm for Youngkin in white suburbia. He's going to pilfer off a few people of color. But if Terry wins, and this is a big if, it'll be due to people of color, black and brown votes who came out at the last second. And I hope Democrats realize that they win these close elections in purplish states thanks to black and brown people. And you can't allow a mansion and a cinema to hijack the needs of black and brown voters and enough white voters who are trying to save this democracy. And the last thing I'll say, what you mentioned about saving democracy, we're not, I've been saying this on your podcast for years. So hopefully you can testify as a witness about how the Republican Party is going to radicalize and weaponize. I've been saying this, me, Jared, a few others. If Republicans take the governor house and the state house, we're in trouble in 2024, because I think the Democrats going to win in the statewide election in 2024 if it's Biden or anyone else. But will they certify the election? And the answer is no. And that's why when you said to that little girl, this might be the last time we vote in an election, you might be right.
Well, just to recap, if Republicans take Virginia, that in the next presidential election, if the Democrat wins, they'll be like, not so fast.
That's right. Exactly what happened in Georgia. Let's not forget.
Yeah.
We have the audio of Donald Trump pressuring Republican Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger to find votes. Now, all those guys, those few Republicans who are the guardrails who put democracy over this country, are being purged by the Republican Party and replaced with loyalists to Trump. The fake audits that have proved Biden won in Arizona didn't matter. They're still doing these fake audits. So you're degrading trust in democracy. You're removing Republicans in state legislatures and secretaries of state and governors who put democracy above Trump. And you're promoting disinformation, which seeps through the mainstream. And now people think both parties, according to an NPR poll that just came out yesterday, 42 to 43%, both sides are responsible for the erosion of democracy, which is exactly Steve Bannon's flood the zone with shit strategy at play. You just flood the zone with shit. And when you have the institutional gatekeepers not calling out the shit and doing both sides, enough people in the middle, Pete, get confused. I just had someone say, I heard the vaccine. My aunt said this. The vaccine's for children. It causes massive side effects. I'm like, where did you hear that? I just heard it somewhere. I had to correct her.
Yeah.
This is where we're at, bro. I mean, I'm not trying to terrify people. I'm not trying to do doomsday scenario. But if I see a comet coming, and I have a telescope and you don't, isn't it my responsibility to warn you about the comet that's coming?
Well, certainly through the lens of your telescope, this is how you see it. You also would love to be wrong about some of this. Unfortunately, I
would love to be wrong. I would love to eat crow.
Yeah, you've been right too often, which is one of the reasons why I always want to talk to you. Now, what about? I heard that the Daily Beast was going to send you to Dallas to cover the QAnon convention, where today they predict that JFK Jr. JFK himself.
JFK.
He's 104.
Yeah.
JFK Jr. is also still alive, apparently, and they're going to come back, and Trump somehow is going to be back in. I forget the theory, but there's a good amount of people there, and
hundreds of QAnon MAGA supporters showed up in Dallas because they thought that the 103-year-old JFK who was shot and killed by Lee Harvey Oswald or aliens or Scientologists, whatever you believe, was going to reemerge because he's actually not dead. But I want to tell everyone that JFK was with Tupac and Elvis in my home eating biryani, and then we went and voted for the deep state and Terry McAuliffe. So I'm sorry, QAnon. But honestly, we sit there and laugh, as we should. But this is where we're at with disinformation and the power of social media and the power of Facebook and 4chan and of both sides mainstream ecosystem that allows these lies like CRT to flourish without a sufficient pushback, that hundreds of grown-ass men and women decided to come out voluntarily because they thought they would see the emergence of JFK in Dallas.
Yeah.
That's scary, man.
It is, because it's where the fringe used to be is now mainstream, because the fringe always was there, but they didn't have a platform to spread their lies. So now, if those are the craziest, most mentally ill, actively political folks, then the next gradation, I guess, is Alex Jones, whose act as a comic, this is how we think, his act has now been lifted almost wholeheartedly now by Tucker Carlson.
That's right. Tucker
Carlson is doing a lot of what Alex Jones has done. He performs it differently, and he does it under the banner of a major corporate news company, which is taken much more seriously by a whole bunch of serious people than Alex Jones was. And so I wouldn't even say it's more subtle. So where are we at now with one of the most influential people in all of media, or many of them, espousing things, all kinds of things, every single night, from replacement theory,
right,
so overt white supremacy, to creating doubt over science, from climate change to COVID?
You gave the great analogy of Alex Jones. You don't need Alex Jones in InfoWars anymore because you have the mainstream Republican Party and Tucker Carlson. I'll give you one example. His upcoming propaganda, quote-unquote, documentary, where allegedly he says January 6th was a false flag, and he interviews people like Ali Alexander, one of the planners of Stop the Steal, who openly said that he coordinated with 3 Republican elected officials, Paul Gosar of Arizona, Andy Biggs of Arizona, and Mo Brooks, who decided to just wear Kevlar, coincidentally, that day, Pete. Why is this happening? Because, and you got to give them credit, it's pretty smart. They realize the investigation, at least the Dems have the House for the next year, and Merrick Garland and Justice Department and following the money, is going to expose Republicans. It's going to expose Republican activists. It's going to expose people like John Eastman, the Federalist attorney, the person from the right-wing think tank who wrote the 6-point memo. It's going to expose Trump. I mean, this is going to be very damaging. So, going back to our last point, how do you confuse the masses? Flood the zone with shit. Conspiracy theories, disinformation, deep state, they're against you, false flag, JFK's coming back, Jews control everything, right? And so enough people are like, both sides are crazy, I heard this, I heard that. This is I'll give it credit, a brilliant evil strategy to preemptively block the shock that we're going to get hit with probably by the summer, when the investigation covers how deep and thorough the January 6th failed coup was within the entire Republican Party and conservative movement. And then when they get to 2022 and 2024, as we're already hearing right now preemptively, if Youngkin loses, the deep state rigged the election. If Youngkin won, the silent majority has fought back.
Yeah.
And we knew that CRT was the devil and defund the police. And come on out, silent majority. It belongs to MAGA, this country does. But if they lose, it's the deep state, which is exactly what Trump did. So how does a democracy survive? It doesn't. A democracy does not survive, which is why I believe we are heading to a constitutional crisis in 2024, unless something really big happens, like unless Trump dies, unless Garland really gets some massive evidence.
But like, even if Trump were to die of natural causes, I mean, even if he did, and that's quite possible with a man his age, much less Joe Biden, and it's like they're very old men.
That's right.
A certain percentage of people will not believe, apparently, that they're even dead. Maybe another percentage of people will believe that they died nefariously. And then the last percentage of whatever it is will believe the truth of whatever it is. Does it matter is my question. I'm sorry. First of all, they won't believe it. Second of all, does it matter? Because Mike Pompeo seems very effective.
Yeah. So it's like Hydra, right? You remove one head, another one grows.
DeSantis, yes. Pompeo, Pence.
But the Trump head right now is very popular and very influential, and he's the cultish leader. So I think if he gets decimated through infirmity or jail time, or if he just dies because he's old, you will see a weakening. And then you'll see this type of Julius Caesar type attempt where someone's going to try to get power. Who's it going to be? Pompeo, Hawley, DeSantis. None of them have the charisma and the brand name of Trump. They don't. Right now, it's still his party, to the point where Republican Senator Tim Scott said, yes, if Trump runs, we'll rally behind him, right? It's still his. So that weakening effect and that period of disruption and confusion is great for Democrats and the majority to flex. I really think that will help us. However, as I've said before on your show, and I said this a couple of years ago and someone didn't believe me, I said this on Chris Hayes' show like 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. You can maybe find the clip. I said, I believe in our lifetime, we have lost about 30 to 35% of Americans. They said, why do you say that? I say, if you look at the numbers, about 30 to 35% of Americans are within this right-wing infotainment infrastructure where they get all their news and information from the podcast, Fox News, talk radio, the digital websites. They live on Earth 3. I believe they're radicalized. You and I have talked to them. I've met them. We can't win them over. They believe what they believe. I do not think in our lifetime, no matter what we do, we're winning them over. It reminds me of desegregation in 1954. People think, there was desegregation, Rosa Parks, and Supreme Court, and Brown versus Board of Education, and then we had Ta-Nehisi Coates and MLK. There was a generation, Pete, that never gave it up, ever. It literally was with them until they died. And I think for you and me and the rest of our life, the next 20 to 30 years, the fight, this type of pivotal fight that you mentioned, this once-in-a-generation fight they're in with pandemic, income inequality, climate change, all coming to a head, white supremacy. This is a fight to the death for them. This is an all-or-nothing, zero-sum game. And the majority finally has to flex by any means necessary, and we have to flex our power. Look, flexing our power is finally, we got cinema to come around on lowering the prescription drugs today. Remember, people were saying, oh, no, don't push against Manchin. This is what we always do. We coddle white supremacy. Yeah. We coddle white anxiety. Don't push. She's going to become Republican. That's what they told me. People got so upset at me last month. I'm like, you got to push. And what happened? All that pressure got her, at least today, to cave on lowering the price of prescription drugs through the BBB plan of Biden.
Yeah.
So if the institutions have to flex, man. But I feel like you and I have worked in the media. The media isn't built that way.
Right.
Yeah, it just isn't built that way. Tell me I'm wrong. Please tell me I'm wrong.
Well, I guess the question would be, what would you expect who in the media to do, and how should they be doing it?
I would say there has to be a penalty where I'll put it this way. It is okay for every single person in the media to say, I am biased in favor of democracy and against fascism. Number one, I am biased in favor of truth and against conspiracy theories. And there has to be a stick. If you are a Republican operative, activist, commentator, or a senator, and if you think that Biden lost the election and you're promoting the big lie, you are banished from my network until you can come on and actually say the truth. If these people are banished from mainstream establishments, I want everyone to listen to this. All they'll have is Newsmax, One American News, the right-wing ecosystem. That is a small ecosystem of 35%. The only way they win is by seeping through the mainstream. If the mainstream quarantines, right, and says, nope, you're going to get punished, we protect and inoculate the majority, We deprive the minority of oxygen. And guess what? In order to win these elections in purple states, Pete, they need CNN. They need MSNBC. They need NPR. They need New York Times. They need the majority. But if the majority establishments do it both sides, due to selfishness, backdoor dealings, access, because of these antiquated rules where Biden and others say, I know them. Behind the scenes, they're rational people. I don't give a shit how they are behind the scenes. All I'm seeing is their behavior and their actions. I don't know what's in their heart. I'm not Ben Carson. I don't know what's in their mind. I'm not God. But if you cannot say that Biden won the election and you're promoting the big lie, you're off. If you promote the violent insurrection, you're off. If you promote replacement theory, you're off. There has to be the stick, the boomstick. And the final thing I'll say is, oh, no, we have to call the minority about vaccines. They're going to get angry. Vaccine mandates, do they work, ladies and gentlemen?
Overwhelmingly, and almost in the private and public sector. I suppose you could cherry pick like one. I don't even know where you would pick.
None. You can't cherry pick any of them.
I can't think of anything.
Look at the police in New York.
Yep. No,
we're not going to do it. 37
total police officers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
United Airlines, only 300 employees, 99.5% compliance rate.
Yeah.
Firefighters, it was like an 82%. It'd probably go up. So, I'm saying, like, we need to flex, man. I know I might seem harsh, but if we do not flex, we're dealing with a death cult. Even today, that Scalise.
I saw that. Right before we jumped on, I was going through your Twitter timeline, and like I've got to thank you for the new app that allows me to not look at any sports tweets of yours, and there isn't one. I wish there were. I'm desperate for it. But what time do you turn into a pumpkin? But it's
10 p.m. Warriors
10 p.m. He starts tweeting about sports. But I saw this video of Steve Scalise that I'll have played earlier on the show, and I just got so outraged by it. It was him basically denying the scientific consensus of climate change while the world is meeting, while the alarms are ringing, and the leader of the Republican House, the second in command, is denying the science. The only political party in the world, I believe, is my understanding, party in the world that does this. And the problem, again, with the media is they act like there are a lot of serious Republicans. This is the leader. The leaders of the party are selling nonsense.
Well, the leader of the party is still Trump, and Trump said that climate change is a hoax created by China. And this is a bipartisan existential threat that's coming after all of us. What do you say about a party that does not believe in an existential threat that is literally going to kill all of us?
Yeah.
I call it a death cult. And on this issue alone, on climate change, they should be banned from like network news. Do you believe in climate change? No, you're done. You're not a serious person.
I agree. I would agree with that. And similar to vaccines and others where things where there's
this is the thing with Virginia, man. This is what I'll say about Virginia. Regardless of what happens, I pray to God Terry McAuliffe barely wins. Regardless of what happens, this is what you need to know if you're a Democrat moving forward. CRT, as Republicans have announced, is they believe a winning strategy across the nation, especially around purple states, to win over suburban voters. That we're going to turn your kids into transgender activists who hate pronouns and hate white people. You need an effective counter message. You can. It goes, they're trying to ban something that doesn't exist, but they're also trying to ban mask mandates and vaccine mandates. And guess what they're good with? Guns. So who here actually wants to save kids? Democrats. These guys want to kill your kids. You got to hit back. And another thing that they're going to try to do is light Trump light. Youngkin, tall, plays basketball. He has a vest. He smiles. But he, like we mentioned, he is part and parcel of MAGA, man. He's not going to get elected without MAGA. And once he gets elected, MAGA is going to want bans on masks, bans on vaccines, women's rights curtailed, voting suppression, right? So you got those two ingredients that are going to be used across the nation that Dems really need to counter. And at the very least, win or lose, you now know what you're up against.
All right. Well, all well said. Thank you very much for talking to me about a wide range of things. But here at the end, what is it? What do you want to leave me on? Something positive about.
Look, man, I feel like we're alive. I'm 41. You're 42. How old are you?
46.
You're 46? You're hella old. God dang, 46. I thought you were 43 this old, but you work out. You got muscles. You got abs.
You want to race?
Yeah, your wife does the pilates.
What is the manliest? What is the manliest competition we could do to prove our dominance over one another?
Push-ups.
Oh, I got you there.
Pull-ups.
I've got you there,
which is my nemesis in life. Cooking. I'll cook you.
Oh, yes. You've got me on cooking, and that should be a measure. I like that a lot. That's good. Although, I don't know. You can cook till you're 90 if you're, I mean, you know, nothing good. You can't eat anything at that point, I would imagine.
But you know, I think that's manly. And then women dig guys who cook. So
no, that's right. No, you're right. I said manly. I was thinking like age.
And also hair. I have hair still.
Yeah, right. Well done. And you probably will. Do you have any hair loss?
I do. Look at it.
Oh, that's nothing. You're fine. You're fine. And you're not, are you dyeing your hair at all in any way?
No. Look, it's gray, man.
Will you
gray hair.
Will you dye anything?
No. My wife will be disgusted. I'll do a Steve Martin.
You look like the Ayatollah.
My wife finds it attractive. And also we both have facial hair, so we got it. That's a tie. The positive news is, like I was saying, is we're alive. We've been through many challenges. We've survived the pandemic. Through our challenges in life that you have discussed on your show, that I discuss in the book, it has hopefully made us better men, more empathetic, more vulnerable, more honest, more grateful. We have families that love us. Our kids love us. And, you know, you don't know what the future is going to bring. We're living in a pandemic. There's a crisis of income inequality, of racism, of white supremacy, the death rattle of white supremacy, of climate change. But we have to hold on to what matters and hold on to something that gives us joy. So the fact that we have our kids and the fact that you and I do what we do and get paid for it, it makes us very lucky men, man. Not everyone gets this.
I completely agree with your perspective. How do you feel about this time of year, November, the daylight savings, the darkness, their early, you know, shorter days?
I feel like, you know, it's just the universe's bias against Scorpios. I don't know why. We're the most maligned people in the astrology chart, but I just feel like it's another FU to us Scorpios. You know, they're trying to hold us back, but it won't stop us. We'll work even in darkness.
Love you, buddy. Well done.
Take care, man. Thank you so much.
Stand up. And there you go. Wajahat Ali, everybody, at Wajahat Ali on Twitter. Go pre-order the book and let him know that you heard him here on the show. Another great conversation with Waj, and thanks again for another great conversation with, I learned so much from Dr. Arthur Caplan. Appreciate you guys listening as always. Hope to see you at tomorrow night's Hangout. We'll discuss the results of Election Day, your thoughts on everything else that's happening, what we've been talking about on the show, and anything else that you want to talk about. Sign up now. Be a member of our community. Join us. StandUpWithPete.com. StandUpWithPete.com. All right. I'm going to wrap it up and go post this baby so you can listen to it. So John Carroll, Grammy Award winner. Did you win any Emmys? Why am I giving you an Emmy, John? Grammy Award-winning singer-songwriter, the great John Carroll, sings us out, as he always does.
Stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town. Just stand up. Stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. She's the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up. Stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up. They had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. All right, we got to speak up. We got to reach up and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up. You got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show up. package to the voice inside. And listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It's